Today is a big day because today we start working on your public profile. And what I don't want you to do is wait till this course is over and then go into, I'm going to watch a million YouTube videos and take another 30 classes on how to make my LinkedIn really good and whatever, before you start actually working on your social media. Listen, there's a thing that happens in business mostly, not usually in politics, but in business that could impact the way you get things done by delaying it, actually. And that's planning something to death. So although that's not what this lesson is about, this lesson today is about your public profile, I am going to discuss this first because this is often where I see this pattern pop up. Okay, so whenever you're dealing with something that's a little bit foreign to you, where you have to expand past your comfort zones, usually this comes in the launch of a thing. When you're launching a new product, a service, or launching your public profile, something like that, we tend to plan it to death. You'll go through it a million times, as even if you're doing a new website. Wait, I have to change the heading colors before I publish it. Oh, you know what, this wasn't good enough. Let me fix it and change it again. You know what, I could have done better. I could have done this better. Let me go do that before I publish it. And odds are all these little changes here and there, your audience won't even notice. Whether your headings are blue or green, you know what I mean, isn't going to make that big of a difference at the end of the day, usually. So we tend to do this as a delay tactic, usually because we're nervous, okay? And your public profile and developing your social media is one of the areas that we tend to slack off on. The problem is that it's also an amazing area to generate leads. Now, here's where the debate comes in the political arena. There's two schools of thought in politics, okay? There's the old school way of doing things where social media is not impactful. People were winning elections long before there was a social media, right? So there's a lot of people that believe that social media is a big waste of time. And even having too much of a public profile can actually hurt you instead of help you. Those people, I'm not one of those people, by the way, but those people believe that social media is a place where you are going to inevitably make a mistake. You might say the wrong thing, and the scandal that mistake could cause you could have lasting impact. And understand that the people that are believing this aren't necessarily inherently wrong. Every time, especially during a campaign, your headquarters, so party headquarters, could lose $1 million a day every time you screw up and say something that requires HQ to step in and help you do damage control. $1 million a day you are costing your campaign when you end up a negative headline. So not cool. And you want to avoid that. And an easy way to avoid that is to not put yourself in situations where you could screw up. Social media is a perfect example of that. The problem is that unless you have massive name recognition, unless the papers are constantly publishing great things about you, people don't know you exist. And even if you are the busiest, hardest working politician there is, if the public doesn't see that, then it might as well not even be true. Because nobody will know but you and your assistant who hasn't had a weekend in 6 months, right? Nobody's going to know that unless they actually see that. And social media is the place to make that happen easily and quickly. Because here's the other thing. The press isn't always going to be on your side. The press these days is no longer necessarily always honest. The press is desperate for clicks. So they are going to spin things and exaggerate things or completely ignore you altogether. Because now where there used to be newsrooms of 20, 30, 50, 100 people, now it's 2 or 3 people working from home on a laptop. So news isn't what it used to be. They don't dig as deep as they used to, unless, of course, it's something so salacious, but that's usually at the leadership level, not at the average politician level. So one of the worst things that can happen to you is to be ghosted by press. It's bad enough when it's negative, but when you're ghosted, it might be even worse. I remember dealing with a candidate that the papers just ignored them. It was like they didn't exist. So they were almost wishing they would get negative press just to be in the press because they were having a hard time reaching voters because the press acted like they weren't there. So they were able to use social media to undo that damage by making sure that they had boosted ads that reached more people than that article would have should they have been mentioned in it, right? So social media is the great equalizer. It has made public life a democracy, is what it has done, which means that if the papers aren't giving you attention, if the party's not giving you attention, if the public's not giving you attention, social media is where you can get up in their face to make sure that you're known, that your name is recognized, that your work is seen, and that you are able to then leverage the potential that all that success and positivity can offer you. Now, there's a school of thought that hates social media. Hates it, hates it, hates it. They want you to avoid it, and they don't use it in their formulas, in their campaign management. Now, this is where I diverge from that. So the old hat is what I call it. People, they will say, no, your GOTV campaign is the most important part of your campaign. GOTV, by the way, is get out the vote. So when you go into an election cycle, what you need to find, and we're going to dig into this deeper later on in the course, is the vote number you need to win. Because, when you think, I have to get over 50% of the votes. No, you probably need 30% of the votes to win, right? So in an election, it's not as clear as two people running and it's 50-50. It's split because we have a multi-party system. So what you need is probably around the 33% mark to actually win this election. And there's a specific vote number. So if there's, 5,000 eligible voters, how many of those voters do you need to actually win? And then you spend your entire campaign trying to not only ID those votes. So Mrs. Jones at 232, whatever street is a voter for my party. You want to ID those specific people, and then you want to make sure they actually get to the polls until you get that number that you need. So that is the most important part of your campaign, and I stand by that. This is where people like me diverge from the old hat players. The old hat players put a substantial percentage of their resources into the last few days of your campaign. And what they do is they spend tens of thousands of dollars sometimes on what is called a door knocker, which is a piece of cardboard. It's like a postcard type thing that is made to hang on your doorknob that reminds you that today is election day. Here's your polling station, and please get out and vote. We really need your vote. Now, those cards used to be incredibly effective before there was internet. Before there was internet, not everybody knew where they were supposed to go. The voting things changed. It wasn't so easy to get that information, and therefore it wasn't so easy to get people to the polls. So those door knockers were invaluable at the time because they made sure that people were reminded, hey, it's election day, and we need you to go, and this is where you go to vote. And that used to be the way people would bring a win home. Here's the problem. The people that utilize that methodology, and I'm going to offend people here that I have actually worked with for several years, the people that stand by that methodology, they used to win elections that way, right? So that worked 20 years ago. The problem is that now they're using that same outdated model in an era that has changed considerably since then. So it has become completely outdated. And these are the same people that, although they are booked to work many elections, they're not winning any. They haven't won any for a very long time. But they will always say to you, this is a tried and true method. Oh, absolutely. 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was the way to do it. But the world has changed since then. They haven't. So they keep using what used to win elections 20 years ago, are losing those elections today, and blaming everything but the postcard GOTV thing that is now outdated. So where do I put my resources? Where do I put my resources when it comes to getting people to the polls? And what does that have to do with your public profile? Everything. I put those resources into social media campaigns. And I am learning to leverage new technology to use social media to ID votes, which is something that the old hats have never thought of. So what they will say to you, because they don't understand social media and the technology available right now through social media, they will say, you can't ID votes on social media. When you hear that from a strategist, you know that they are old hat. They are old hat. If they're not IDing votes on social media, it's because they don't know how to. And let me tell you another disease that happens with political strategists that have been in the business a really, really, really long time. I call them legacy strategists, right? Is that they are so arrogant. It's kind of like the same way archaeologists don't want to change their opinion on history when they find new evidence because it disqualifies a lot of what they learn. And we see this in medicine as well. We find medical doctors or scientists have a hard time advancing their views or shifting their views when new evidence and new technologies are presented that invalidate some of what they used to believe back in the day. They will fight that change in narrative as hard as they can because they're more interested in seeming right than they are in, actually growing and learning how to do better. That arrogance exists in politics, very much so at the strategic communication level. So these people, because they don't understand a thing, believe that it's invalid. I'm going to say that again in a different way. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. So when you're hearing an old hat strategist say, door knockers is the way to go, it's door knockers, that's what wins elections, social media doesn't work, social media doesn't win elections, this is my response to them. Tell that to Obama and Donald Trump. Right? Old hat politics is outdated. Your stupid door knocking thing is outdated. We live in the information age. Do you really think that people today don't know it's election day when it's election day? Of course they know it's election day. And their stupid little door knocker that you spent thousands of dollars on to put on their door, if someone wasn't going to go vote, if they had no intention to vote, they're tired, they had a bad day, they don't care, they're cynical. Do you really think they're going to come home to the door knocker on their door and say, I really should go vote. I said I wasn't going to, but now I'm going to because there's a piece of cardboard on my doorknob. Come on. So social media is your GOTV strategy if you know what you're doing. Or you have a comms person that understands social media, knows how to use it to ID votes, and you're modernizing your GOTV operations just like Obama did, just like Trump did, very successfully. Trump is the villain of the planet right now, but his followers are still incredibly engaged, they're incredibly supportive, and they're growing in some areas. Why? Because his social media prowess keeps him front and center. And so many times a politician listening to the old hats that tell you not to bother on social media, you have to spend way more money on traditional media ad buys from the same companies that won't give you the press. Those same news people that you can't trust because journalism is not honest anymore are the same ones you have to spend tens of thousands of dollars giving them money to promote your ads or whatever because otherwise nobody's going to see them. And even then, how useful are you? When you're putting ads all over newspapers, you're not IDing votes that way either, right? When you're just sending out mailers, you're not IDing votes that way either. So how do you ID a vote? And why does that matter when it's not even, you haven't even run for office? Why does that matter? Because every single person that is following your page may vote for you, may know someone who's in a position to vote for you, or may contribute to your campaign eventually because they've been following you for 5 years on social media. They feel like they know you very well. You feel very integral and now they want to support you when you decide to run 5, 2, 3, whatever years from now. They'll say, I've been following you this whole time. I'm not in your riding. I can't vote for you, but I have a cousin that does, and I'm going to make sure that their whole household goes to the polls and votes for you. That's what you want. And you don't wait till election time. This is why we're having this conversation about GOTV long before you ever run for office. You don't wait to build that following when you run for office like so many of my candidates do. So many of my candidates are incredibly active on social media during an election campaign, and then they're radio silent after they win. So now they're in office, they're doing the job and a damn good job, but now that they're in there, they don't bother sharing what they're doing on social media. So then when they run for re-election, you should vote for me because I worked really hard for you. Did you? Because I never heard your name mentioned anywhere. I didn't see you do anything. So what, I only hear from you when you run for office and you want my vote? That's what you get when you're not active on social media all the time in between elections. And there's something else that happens too. You've all heard of the algorithm, right? The algorithm rewards steady behavior and consistency. So if you're not posting often and consistently and good quality content, the algorithm will put you at the bottom of the view list, right? And then you have to rev up the algorithm engine when you're wanting to run for office again. And that takes a while to tell the algorithm, hey, notice me, I'm back in action. And even then, because you're newly back in action, you'll get some increased leverage, but not the kind of reach you get when you have been consistently active for years and years and years. So it's in your best interest to have your social media rocking a year, 2 years, 5 years before you ever run for office. Because by that point, your reach is so huge and your impact is huge. People see that you're busy. They feel like they get to know you. There's a level of trust that's built that you don't get on a stupid friggin' door knocker, or you don't get because one newspaper decides to give you a quick positive flash in the pan that everybody's going to forget in a week. So your social media is how you show that consistency, you build that relationship, and you set the tone of who you are and how you are perceived. That's the most important part. Because often somebody else will start to tell that story about who you are and how they think you should be perceived. It's not always beneficial to you. So a good way to reframe misunderstandings, let's say, is to do that on social media, to actually show people, no, don't listen to the stupid journalist that just needs the clickbait. This is the reality of who I am. This is what you need to know about me and why I'm going to be good for you or for this riding or whatever it is that you're doing. And even if you do all that work, you build that engagement, whatever, and then whatever happens in your life and you decide not to run for office, it is not a waste, because whatever you decide to do, now you have a fantastic public platform to do it from. Maybe 2 years from now, you're inspired to write a book. Well, guess what? Now you have a massive audience to sell it to without even trying. Most people wait till they decide what they want to do specifically before they start building their public profile. It's unnecessary and it's a waste of time, because by the time you know what you want to do, at that point, you need the audience to be successful doing it. So let's use the book because that's simple, okay? And I've actually just gone through this with another client. So I had a potential client come to me and say, I'm in the process of writing a book. This is something I've been thinking about for years, and I just started putting pencil to paper. Fantastic, congratulations. Are you working on your public profile? No. I wouldn't do that till after I write the book. Oh, okay. So when you publish this, are you going through a publisher or are you self-publishing? No, I'm going to do it on Kindle because I want to keep all my money. Oh, fantastic. So how's it going to sell? What do you mean? I'm going to put it on Kindle and then it's available to sell. And remember, we're talking about books, but this very much applies to politics, okay? And you are the product here. You're the author, you're the book, right? And the product is your political or whatever career. So no, I'm going to just put it up on, make it available on Kindle and then people can buy it. But there's a lot of books on Kindle, just like there's a lot of politicians, right? There's a lot of public figures out there. There's a lot of books. How are people going to find it and know that they should want to read it? Oh, well, I guess when I do the book, I'll have to do some promotion. Okay, so at that point, you're going to do social media. Well, yeah, I'll start announcing that. Oh, okay, good. How many followers do you have right now? Oh, I don't know, 25, 30. So when you announce the launch of the book, 25 people are going to know. Yeah, yeah, okay. And so of those, how many do you think are actually going to buy it? Remember, sales, we talked a few minutes ago or last class or whatever, that, your sales conversion rates in any industry is between 6 to 12%. So potentially only 6% of those 30 people are going to actually buy your book. So is that really going to make a dent? Like, will you be able to live off that? Well, no, but then, I guess I would try and do promotion after. Oh, so you're going to build an audience after the book is released. Which means if it takes you a year or two to build a big audience, does that mean it'll be a year or two before the book starts to sell? Because then you're going to look like a failure, right? Because you want to release your book. And remember, when you publish your book, you've got 4 hot weeks. You have four hot weeks to really generate momentum and a buzz and get people excited to hopefully get on a bestseller list. So if you don't do it in the first 4 weeks, you're not doing it. That book ends up sitting in, Kindle limbo until somebody organically, discovers it. But you're not going to make enough sales to make any money. Now, the same works for the same works for politics. So if you wait till you need the public support to start seeking that public support, you're starting behind the gate. So what you need to do is start building the audience before you have the product to give them or the plan in action. So then you're thinking, well, what do I talk about if I don't even know what I'm going to be doing in 2 years? How do I promote it? You don't, but it's yourself. And you set yourself up for a good public platform. And you do that in a few ways, and it's not just social media. But social media is the thing that you're going to reach way more people on social media than you will hanging out at an event, let's say, or having an article published about you if you're lucky enough to have that happen. If you get a publicist, it's a little bit easier. If you invest in a publicist, they will make sure you're being written about. That's something I highly recommend as part of your public profile, is to have a publicist help you get on morning talk shows, appear on podcasts, blogs, or whatever that's going to give you that FaceTime and that, name recognition with your voters. Be careful with that, though. Be careful, because it could be a time thing, too. So, for example, if you count the time it takes for you to prepare for a podcast and then get online and record the podcast, or go to all these different events, and the travel time and the tickets and the clothes you need and everything else, all of that adds up. And unless the people there are going to be in your specific riding to vote for you one day, could be a waste of time. So be very careful what you say yes to. And especially the closer you get to running, the bigger and the more frequent those invitations get. So if you had to say yes to everything, you would never get anything done. So keep that in mind too. But basically, you start building this thing, and it's an organic, holistic approach to your public profile. So yes, it's LinkedIn. LinkedIn's very important. Utilize LinkedIn, become very good at LinkedIn, watch some YouTube videos on how to maximize LinkedIn for your reach. You want to do YouTube, you want to do Facebook, you want to do Instagram. Most importantly, you want to use the platforms where your potential audience, people like you or people you're trying to reach, hang out in. Find out where they hang out, and that's where you want to put your energy. What you don't want to do is spread yourself too thin to say, I'm going to be on every single platform there is, because who's creating all that content for you? Unless you're outsourcing that and you've got the funds to find a company like Black Ram Media, for example, that creates political social media content or corporate social media content, you don't have time to sit there and create stuff for every single platform there is, right? So it's about picking the ones that have the highest concentration of who your target audience is and being very prolific on those platforms. That's really the approach you want to take. And then, of course, it's how you're living your life day to day. You know that a politician, there's certain expectations. You're expected to attend certain charity events. You're expected to acknowledge certain days of the year as special. You're expected, so what you want to do is look at your favorite politicians, your favorite ones. And I want you to follow them on social media. And it's also a good practice to follow politicians you hate that are successful, that you don't understand why people like them. That's very good to study those people. What are they doing on social media that you're not doing? How do they approach their public profile? How often are they posting? What are they posting about? What kind of stuff do they do? Follow people you love, follow people you hate. You will learn a lot from the people you hate. Because if you're trying to beat them, you need to beat them at their own game. So in order to learn that, you've got to learn their game. So we're so often, I only follow people I like. Great, that's fine. But it's a little bit myopic. And if you really want to be able to convince people of the opposition that they should support you instead of the person you hate, you need to learn to speak their language. So for example, if you're a conservative and you're trying to convince a liberal, you can't use conservative language on a liberal. You're going to turn them off. So what you have to do is use liberal language in a conservative way that they can relate to. And you won't be able to do that unless you listen to how the opposition speaks. That's what makes you powerful. So social media allows you an opportunity to not only deliver messaging and position yourself, but it also gives you the opportunity to look at what your opposition is doing, to look at what people that you want to be like are doing, and to then act accordingly. What I don't want you to think is that you have to create a caricature of yourself. You don't want to turn yourself into a caricature, okay? So no one's asking you to be something you're not. No one's asking you to speak in a manner, I only speak on what people want to hear. I don't want you to get choked up on what you think people want from you, or how you think you should sound, or how you think you should appear. I want you to be who you are. This is very important for you to understand, because you're going to be in a world where lesser thinkers, because listen, there's a lot of lazy strategists out there, right? That are just going to give you the boilerplate tips on what you should do, or the old hats that only know how to do one thing. So that's all they know how to talk about, right? So you're going to get bad information. You're going to get bad advice. So you want to be able to discern what's the good advice and what's the bad advice. And the bad advice is going to turn you into a boilerplate. They're going to say, this is how you have to look, this is how you have to dress, this is how you have to sound, even if it's completely foreign to the reality of who you are. And the thing is, it's not going to last. Remember, these thinkers aren't really out there for your success. They're out there to protect the party, right? And to protect the win of the main election, not just your riding. They're in it looking at the whole thing. So they're always going to give you the easiest digestible answer that will keep you from messing up. Not necessarily help you win, keep you from messing up, because they don't want to have to spend that $1 million a day to cover up your misstep. So it's easier for them to say, do us a favor, fit yourself into this boilerplate template of a person and regurgitate everything we tell you the way we tell it to you, and you're going to be fine. That's what they're going to say to you. But you also might not win. You won't do damage to them, but you might not win your seat, right? So what you need to do, like I said, is discern who's giving you the real good advice, and take it from someone who's been in PR their entire adult life. It might work for you for a minute. It might even help you win the seat or sell your book, whatever it is, for you to fit the template of what they're telling you should be. But it won't last. I've seen this time and time again. When you are operating outside of your integrity. So if your public image does not reconcile internally with who you really are, if you feel there's a lack of integration, so the public profile is very different from the personal person, you will feel inauthentic. And what will happen is the novelty of that will wear off. You will become exhausted. You will feel like a fraud. You're going to have imposter syndrome. It's a horrible, horrible feeling that will mess up your success, and it will burn you out. Because you can only fake something for so long. And then eventually the real you gets recorded somewhere, put on YouTube, and everybody's shocked. And then everybody feels like you're a big liar. They don't trust you anymore. And not to mention, people have been subjected to so much bullshit, they can smell it. They can smell when somebody is being inauthentic. And, when someone's being inauthentic, it's usually because there's something to hide. So now they smell blood, and now they're going to go look for that thing, because nobody's that perfect. Nobody's that polished all the time, and they want to find out what really makes you tick as a human being. So my suggestion, if you don't want to burn out and you want to feel integral and authentic so that you can feel good about your public presence and that your public profile does really reflect who you are, so that should you grow into politics, the political party that chooses you, not the pretend image some dumb publicist that was lazy got you to do. They want to know who you are, and they're going to choose you. And now you can rock it because you only have to be you. You don't have to put on the face, right, to go out. It's you. And people know you for who you are. That's what wins. That authenticity is what wins. Now, is everybody going to love you? No. These generic template personalities that are being created for online is to get the maximum number of people to not hate you. It's not to get people to love you. It's to find the maximum number of people that won't be a resistance. But what it doesn't do for you is it doesn't help you find your people. And what did I say the most important part of a campaign is? Voter ID. You need to be able to identify and find your people. And your people can't find you if they don't see you. So setting up a good public image is to help you find the people that then in 2 years, when you decide to run for office, they're going to come and volunteer for you. They're going to donate to your campaign. They're going to, help put blood, sweat, and tears into your campaign instead of just being ambivalent because you're nothing but another piece of noise that, goes through them and doesn't register a thing in them emotionally. When you're real, you will trigger people emotionally, good and bad. For example, a lot of people hated Trump before he ran for office. More people hated him when he decided to run for office, but he still won. So this is where your public persona, your public profile, and your social media all comes in it's all one big package. So it's not just, by the way, your Facebook and having a good LinkedIn, right? It's being seen at the right things. It's networking in the right places. It's doing the good things for your career. Like, I'll give you an example. In my career, publicly, I'm a good strategist, right? But what people don't know about me is I'm a great industry developer, right? Because before I got into PR, I was a leader of industry in the textile reclamation sector. So I'm very good at developing industries, economies. Even now, I consult for advanced materials firms that are trying to create a global market for this new innovation, this new technology. That's my thing, is new things, creating new markets and new stuff. A lot of people don't know that about me. So I would eventually love a better appointment or some kind of appointment that will allow me to do that, right? For Canada as a whole. Don't have that right now. So what do? I volunteer for municipal committees, and I was put on an economic development committee. Within a year, I was promoted to chair, voted unanimously. Nobody even ran against me. I was acclaimed as chair for an economic development committee. And if I do well in that role, hopefully I'll be given bigger and better appointments. So even though I don't get paid for this, right? So, I'm always someone who goes after money. And if you don't pay me, I'm not doing it. But this I'm happy to do for free, because it allows me the public platform to not just strategize in the back room of a campaign, but it's put me front and center in a community involved in developing their economy. So that will help me indirectly later, should I want a bigger, better appointment. I've already done the entry level thing, right? So your public platform isn't just what's happening on social media. It's what are the appointments you're taking? What are the board of directors? If you're not on a board of directors as an aspiring politician, that changes today. Go find one. I don't care where. find whatever charity or whatever cause means something to you and go for it. So get yourself on a couple of board of directors, volunteer, be seen volunteering. When you have community events that are feel-good things, make sure you're there. When there are community festivals that are a big deal, make sure you're participating. Get photographed everywhere. Because again, if people don't know that you did it, it doesn't count, right? So I don't care how great a moment you're having. If the public doesn't see it, it doesn't exist. It's irrelevant. So make sure you're photographed doing all of these things, and not always the same stupid selfie, for the love of God. Make sure you get good quality photographs of you. Quarterly, you should be having a photo shoot. Quarterly, you should be having a photo shoot. Algorithms have become so sophisticated that when you use the same picture more than once, the algorithm knows and starts pushing it down the view pole. Right? Because they're looking for original quality content all the time. And what's our habit? We go for a photo shoot. They give us 300 pictures. There's 2 pictures that are our favorites, and we use those 2 pictures on every single thing. Not cool and not helpful to you. So if you know that out of every 100 pictures, you're only going to like 3 pictures, then take thousands of pictures in a year. Every quarter, and what you do or your cousin is good with a camera doesn't count. Political photography is nuanced. Public figure photography is nuanced. Get the professional pictures. It is a worthy investment. So every quarter you're going to get photos. Every quarter you're going to redo your public profile and update it a little bit. You're going to start attending community events more, being properly photographed on them, contributing when you can. You're going to join a couple of board of directors, be choosy, and make sure that these are positions that reflect future governance. For example, me on an economic development committee, when it comes to politics, pretty smart, right? What are some other issues? Healthcare, join a hospital board. Is mental health a big problem in your community, or something maybe your family has experience with? I'm not asking you to be non-integral, remember? Be who you are. So what are your passions? If you have no interest in economic development, then you probably shouldn't be on that board, even if it sounds good. But if your family has struggled with mental illness and you join the board of some mental illness platform or charity in your neighborhood, that's going to be great. Especially if the stuff in your life is negative. Like, here's another one for me. When I was a kid, my dad went to prison. And he was a career criminal, so he went to prison more than once. And quite notorious, too. So as someone that is interested in politics, it's kind of hard for me to crawl out from under that shadow. So what I did early in my career, back in my 20s, is I joined the board of directors for the John Howard Association, which is an organization that helps support people in the correctional system reduce recidivism. We're trying to keep people out of jail once they get out, and we support their families and their children when they're in prison. So I did that in my 20s so now when people say, well, your dad was a criminal, that's right. And that really informed my passions as an adult. Now, one of my big passions is helping to reduce recidivism and neighborhood crime, cyclical crime, cultural crime. I'm very passionate about those subjects. So therefore, and because I know what reduces crime, namely kids finishing high school, that's a big one, right? So I know that there's certain things that are indicators that could be a prevention thing. So I put a lot of passion in those areas too. So now when people throw my dad in my face, I actually use him to say, no, this is not somebody I'm hiding from. I'm not embarrassed by my dad. I don't apologize for his choices. I understand his choices. I know exactly why he did what he did. And I have a lot of gratitude for a lot of the sacrifices he made in order for me to have all the things that I had growing up. And some of that wouldn't have happened unless he did what he did. Not that I'm excusing it, but I understand it. And as a result of understanding crime so intimately, I am able as an adult to create programs or support programs that will help reduce crime in communities. So I owned my story that way. And I owned that story and reframed the perception by actually working in the fields that solve the problem that my family got caught up in. So that's how you can use your charity work, you can use your public profile work to actually help you reframe the negative parts of your past that you feel might inhibit your potential success in your future. Your public profile is very important. How you are perceived is very important, but it's important that you do it with thoughtfulness and what feels integral to you. Right? So you need to find and the best way, if you say, well, I don't know what my passions are, the easiest way to figure this out is what makes you mad. When you're watching the news, you're hearing about things in society, what is the thing that pisses you off the most? That is your political calling, right there, right there. So now what I want you to do is find the organizations, the programs, or whatever that's happening in your community that pertains to that issue and dive right in. And that's where you're going to make a name potentially for yourself in that area. But it doesn't matter, even if you don't, even if you just serve, even if you end up on a board of directors that's duds and nothing, comes of it, whatever, it doesn't matter. It looks good on your CV. So once a month, attend the stupid board meeting and and get her done. Because later, when you're doing your blurb as a politician, or whatever you want to do, publishing that book maybe, whatever it is you want to do later, you'll be able, who are you? Well, not only did I do this, but I serve on this committee, I volunteered for this charity, I'm part of this community festival, this is a thing I'm very passionate about, I've been an advocate for these, underprivileged people in the community, blah, 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 blah. Well, now there's that professional persona that we've all been looking for. They're knowledgeable about their community, they've had life experience that has informed how people struggle in the world, they have a deep relating that way, they understand that way, and now I know that if I vote for them, they're going to look out for people that need the help because they've lived this themselves in their life, and look, they've created they're volunteering, right? They're on the board of directors for the charity that fixes this problem. Wow, that's someone who takes a problem and becomes the solution. That's what I want in my elected leader. So that's what you're doing for yourself when you're setting up that public profile. So your homework today is to find the social media platforms where your people are likely to hang out. And I want you to watch some YouTube videos on how to maximize your exposure on those platforms. I want you to look up what the best practices are, because listen, these algorithms are a pain in the ass and they're always changing the rules. So what used to be good advice 2 years ago is not good advice now. So you want to read the most recent best practices for whatever that platform is. Because, for example, it used to be if you made a Facebook post and you wanted people to go to your website, you would put the link right in the written portion of your Facebook post. Well, now Facebook doesn't want you getting off its platform anymore. So when you do that, the algorithm punishes you. So now you have to put the link in comments. So these are just stupid little nuanced things that really impact the organic reach you get on social media. Now, in terms of social media, let's talk about reach, because that's why I'm literally begging you to do this now, today, instead of waiting till you're ready to run for office, because building that organic reach is really important. And if you don't, then you're going to have to find the money to compensate for it. So if you post consistently and good quality original content and you're inspiring, remember, social media wants 3 things from you. Algorithms. They either want you to be entertaining, they want you to be informative, or they want you to be inspiring. Those are the 3 things they're looking for. You don't want to become a pontificate, right? So be careful that you don't become insufferable. Well, I'm going to show you how you should live your life because I'm so smart. You don't want to come off like that either. You want to come off as genuine and helpful, inspiring, funny, whatever, without embarrassing yourself. No one's saying you have to do silly TikTok dances or what. I'm not asking you to do anything you wouldn't normally do, okay? I'm just asking you to stretch a little. Just stretch a little. So, and especially with politics, you definitely don't want to be a caricature. You want to be taken seriously, right? So you're setting up your public profile and the algorithm's loving what you're doing. So it's growing your organic reach. So every time you make a post, 3,000 people are going to see it without you spending a penny, as opposed to other competitors of yours that rarely post at all. So when they post, only 50 people, 10 people are going to see what it is that they're posting. Now, when election time comes, that means that when you're doing paid ads, you don't have to spend as much money as your competition because your organic reach is already huge. You're going to have to do some because remember, you're trying to convince not just your fans, but people that aren't fans yet to follow you, and they might not even know who you are. So paid ads are important because they will attract the people that don't know you exist yet. They're going to find the new ones for you. Your organic reach is mostly impacted by people that already know you and their friends and their followers. So paid ads are incredibly important, but you won't have to spend as much on paid ads if your organic reach is already huge. So very important. And also remember that when it comes to politics, any other thing, like you're selling a book or whatever, if you have 1,000 followers in a different country, you're still going to sell books and it's going to help you. When it comes to politics specifically, don't forget the importance of a riding. We're going to get into ridings and that kind of conversation in a little bit. But understand that if you are in Toronto, having a massive fan base in Alberta isn't going to help you win because people in Alberta can't vote for you. So in every other career, right, having a huge organic reach that is global is fantastic always. However, when it comes to politics, you need to make sure that the base of your following are actually people in your riding that can actually vote for you. That is just a tiny little nuance that you have to remember when you're political, that it's not just growing the volume of numbers, but the volume of numbers of people that will actually vote for you. The same actually works with products too. There's no point having, when people say I buy followers so that I look really big, or I have 5,000 followers, aren't I cool? I remember dealing with a customer once that came to us and I was saying to them that, doesn't matter because they were proud of their following, right? We have 1 million people that follow our page. And that's because a lot of the stuff that they share was pretty clickbaitish. And it was interesting. They were showing things like work accidents, right? So who doesn't want to look at that? People are morbid. They love looking at that stuff. But it wasn't generating sales for them. So, and they were coming to us because they needed to increase sales. And my attitude was, your followers are ridiculous. Like if your followers are not customers, it's useless to you. So why are you so excited about the fact that you have 1 million followers where 5 of them aren't even customers? What you need to do is not increase the volume of your followers. You need to increase the volume of followers that are potential leads. So what you're not doing is you're not turning your social media into a lead generator. Now, lead generator, very similar to IDing votes, right? You're trying to ID potential customers, politicians trying to ID potential votes. So this is where you have to get social media expertise that will teach you not only to grow the big audience, because that's important, but more importantly, to grow the audience of engaged individuals that will actually have an impact on your success, be it a customer or a voter. And again, not something I can teach you in an hour class, right? That takes a lot of expertise, which is why companies like Black Ram Media exist, because we do all that for you. But in the meantime, go on YouTube. There's a lot of gurus giving great free information out there. Spend a couple of hours learning on how you can turn your social media into a lead generator. That is so important. So to summarize everything today, your public profile matters starting today. You can tweak little things until you can make it even better. So right now, maybe just go over your social media pages and look at yourself as though you are the head of a political party trying to find a new candidate. How do you look for them? What's missing? What's missing on your CV? What's missing on your public profile? What do you need? You need more pictures? Do you need an appointment? Do you need some charity work? Like, what do we need to do to give you that gravitas of someone who is fully engaged in their community and responsible and a natural born leader that is ready and made for this? What do we do to set you up to have that gravitas? At the end of the day, gravitas is what you're going after, because that is what's going to make you be taken seriously. And in terms of your public image, I want you to remain integral, but I want you to be smart too. So I'll give you an example. There was one politician that was not on their campaign, and they were very young, very blonde, very cute, with a high-pitched voice. And, it's hard to take that seriously when you have, do you remember, for example, McKenna? She was our Minister of the Environment, and people used to call her Climate Barbie. Okay? That kind of, people are shitty. People are shitty. And even if you don't make yourself a caricature, they will make one of you. So does that mean young blonde women shouldn't run for office? No, of course not. But that means that you have to have enough self-awareness to know when the candidates in the two cities next to me are powerful, strong businessmen that are middle-aged, next to them, I look like their daughter, and I'm not going to be taken seriously. So maybe instead of having long hair and really soft clothing and not realize how high-pitched my voice gets that make me sound like a valley girl, I'm not going to be taken seriously among a voting population that's looking for economic leadership right now. And I'm talking about, I just love to volunteer and do nice things because I'm a nice girl. That's not going to win you an election. And this person was in a bellwether riding. So I used to look at their campaign manager and think, what the fuck are you doing or not doing, this poor girl? You're setting her up to fail. Throw her hair in a bun and put a pair of glasses on her. Throw a blazer on her. Tell her to speak with a little bit of a deeper voice when she's speaking next to these men. And tell her to stop talking about stupid shit and talk about what matters to voters. So little things like a pair of glasses and a bun will do wonders for you if you're trying to be taken more seriously. That sounds very superficial, but it's the way it is. It's the reality of life and politics. Your image matters. For example, I have wealthy white guys, right, that are some of my clients. And when they're running for office, the first thing I say is take off the damn Rolex and borrow your kids' jalopy when you're going to the thing and not drive the Mercedes when you're going to campaign in a poor neighborhood, right? Tell your wife she's not allowed to carry a purse that's more than $400 because people will see that. Your wife thinks I'm going to wear my beautiful Jimmy Choos to this charity event because they're gorgeous, not realizing this is a charity event for poor people and they will never see a Jimmy Choo except for on a commercial, and you're rubbing it in their face when you show up wearing that to an event. And people know how much a Jimmy Choo costs and they will rub it in your face, right? So there's certain physical things that you need to pay attention to when you're in politics because it impacts how you are perceived. If you're a white guy that tends to be very cardboard-like, think of like, not Stephen Harper now, because now he's relaxed. Now when you hear him speak, he's like Obama. But back in the day, he looked like a bit of a cardboard box, right? When you look at that personality, you need to unbutton that top shirt. You need to soften that image or people aren't going to be able to relate to you and they're going to be intimidated by you, right? So there's little nuances that you can do to help be more approachable or to have more gravitas. So in this situation, for example, the little blonde girl I told you about, I would have wanted her in a blazer and her hair in a bun, okay? The guy next to her, I want his Rolex off and unbutton the top shirt. I need her to be a little bit more professional and him to be a little bit softer. Tiny little nuances, like unbuttoning your top button of a shirt. Whether to wear your tie or not wear a tie. Is it appropriate to wear a blazer or today is it better for a sweater? These things really matter and styling matters. Not just about what's going to be fashionable, but what is going to be accepted. And when you're going to a stylist, you've got to know, a stylist needs to know the political world, because a stylist is trained to make you look good, but not necessarily to be appropriate. So they have to understand that you can't wear the Jimmy Choo shoes. Doesn't matter that they're an awesome shoe, right? That you need to wear the Nine West shoe instead of the Jimmy Choo shoe, okay? So these things matter, and you need to find a stylist that understands the nuance of politics. The same way you need a photographer that understands the nuances of politics. You know, photographers, even the good ones, they know how to make you look flattering, right? But do they know how to take a picture that will tell the story? Do they know to leave enough negative space for us to put the logo of the party on it, right? Or to put whatever quote we're going to say that you said or whatever. You know, so unless a photographer understands politics, it's not so easy. So for example, a Black Ram Media Group, we do corporate, we do political, we do family stuff too. The guys that I use to do my professional campaign videos for politics are not the guys I send to wedding shoots, right? It's a whole different thing. I have the directors I use for wedding videos. I have directors that I use for corporate profile video. And then I've got my directors that I use for political campaign videos because they get it. Even the best videographers in the world that will make the best commercial for soap, you know what I mean? Or for a wedding or for a family thing, that they may even be filmmakers and make a fantastic feature film, doesn't mean they're going to make a good campaign video. A campaign video is a very niche product, very nuanced skill to create a good campaign video. And I've got a team that is all that they do, are campaign videos. So you can't just go and say, well, my cousin's a stylist, she's going to help me. Not unless she does the homework first for political styling and the nuances of that, because it's not the same as just any public figure or any professional or celebrity. It's very different. So you need to find the professionals that can help hone that for you. Again, not to be non-integral, right? Of course you're going to remain integral. Of course you're going to love it. No one's going to say to you, hey, you've never worn a suit in your life and now we're going to dress you like Hillary Clinton every day, right? No. But what we want to do is we want to take your personal style so that it's, again, integral, because it's the only way it's going to last, right? So take your personal style and make it digestible to the audience you're trying to reach. So it's never about imposing something different on you. It's about taking you and making it better. So if you're looking at styling help, there's actually a fantastic course for this that's called Style Atelier, and that is something you can do for yourself. Feel free to send me an email, Daniela, Daniela, at blackrammediagroup.com. I don't run that course. I don't profit from that course, but it is fantastic. And it's a course that I often send my clients or their spouses to in order to get ready for styling for public life. And it's fantastic. It is run by a group called the Infinite Couple. They are Richard and Namaste Moore, and they do fantastic work in general in the professional development space. However, this specific course they offer, Style Atelier, is really great, specific to this. And that's how important that your style is. So this organization that does all kinds of professional training stuff and personal development stuff has an entire course just on styling, right? So very, very, very important that you learn how to style yourself appropriately. And again, with integrity. Don't let someone turn you into something you're not. Now, having said that, when you have a personal style, I'm going to call it a glitch, I want you to really unpack where that comes from. So for example, maybe you're someone that says, well, I like the color purple. So everything I wear has to be purple, right? I even color my hair purple, my glasses are purple. Like, that's my thing. That's how people know me. That becomes a cliche, and that turns you into caricature. So as much as I'm saying remain integral to who you are, I am also saying in every single one of these classes, the self-awareness is incredibly important. And sometimes certain things, you get stuck on them because you've told yourself that this is a protective thing. The color purple makes me feel a certain way, and I want that to be my look, and I want to be known for it. And then you take it to such an extreme that then it becomes ridiculous and it becomes a hang up, right? So don't let your affinities become a hang up. We tend to those extremes as people. So I want you to really say, okay, when I'm talking about styling and I want a certain personal style or whatever, or if I say I insist that everything I wear is pointy or whatever, is there a glitch there? Like, is this something that could bite me in the ass later, that then because I've only ever wear purple, I'm only ever allowed to wear purple? You know what I mean? You don't want to end up that, or you don't want people to, oh, she's the one that always has to wear a silly hat. I know she thinks it's cool, but it's silly. Right? So you don't want to come off as being silly. You don't want to be a caricature. And you may be doing things inadvertently that you think is cool that is actually something that people can ridicule you for. So as much as I'm saying stay integral to who you are, don't let a stylist make you wear stuff you hate, for example, or make you wear something that you don't feel is integral to you. That is very true. On the other hand, make sure that anytime somebody's giving you advice and you're feeling resistance to it, doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong. It could be that you have a glitch. So just make sure that as much as you are resisting bad advice and learning how to discern between good and bad advice to what's integral to you, that you're also not using your ego to bite you in the behind, So one of the things is hair. Hair is so important, right? I talked about that young girl that I said they should have put her hair in a bun. Instead her hair was always just flat and long, just like she looked like she was in a high school picture every time I saw her, right? And then, of course, she didn't win, lost several times, but they've never once thought of changing her campaign. Because again, she uses the same old hat people that use the same old hat formula, and they don't look at her, the candidate, in an individual way. They don't look at how she's perceived by people. They don't look at any of that stuff because they're busy buying door knockers that nobody's going to use, right? It's the same type of personality runs her campaigns, and her campaigns are always lackluster, and then they wonder why she never wins. So you have to look at that, and hair is a big part of that. So, you have some people, like there was this trend, that back when the feminist movement started hating men, and all these women were shaving their sides of their hair or the underparts of their hair to look like a warrior. That Viking thing became really cool with women because women were finding their power and fighting back. And then that became synonymous with feminist extremisms. And now when you look at a woman like that, you think, oh, there's a woman that has baggage. When I see a woman with a shaved head, not shaved because she's shaving her whole head, she has a medical condition, whatever. I'm talking about that half the head shave, that look, the look I'm talking about. I don't have to explain this. You know the look I'm talking about. I know that that's a woman that's been cheated on, that someone hit, that something bad happened to her, and she's trying to reclaim her strength in some ways. Now, I could celebrate that she is, maybe, right? Because obviously you get to that point, you've championed some shit. So as a person, I can celebrate that. But as a voter, how does that look to voters? Gee, here's a woman who's angry, has emotional baggage. She's going to be combative. Looks toxic. I don't know that I want that energy in Parliament. I don't know that I want to hear her every day on the news because she'll just be angry all the time, right? So to a voter, it's a turnoff. To some women, it's a calling cry. Like, yeah, that's a sister who's lived through some shit too, right? But as a voter, not as attractive. So you have to remember that. I remember I had dreadlocks back in the day before it was considered cultural appropriation. So I had dreadlocks and they were down to my knees. At this point, I'm already an executive in industry. I can't tell you how much harder I had to work to be taken seriously because of that hair. Now, eventually, I got rid of them because cultural appropriation became the conversation, and I realized that I was a very sticky thing, that I was walking there, and it was uncomfortable, and I just was tired of making everybody angry in both directions. And truthfully, it just didn't feel like I was growing up. I was getting old and mature like everybody else, and it didn't fit me anymore. So I got rid of them. And it was an instant change in how people treated me. Now, my business partner, after I got rid of them, she decided to get them. And at the time, she was just doing photography, nothing else. But we were doing a lot of corporate photography. The more her dreads came in, the less work she got. And as much as she hated to admit it, she lost work because she would go to these corporate events, that was our bread and butter, where she would normally get better new clients, right? So you'd go to one corporate event, network, somebody would see you in action doing the photography, saying, wow, I love the way you work. Can I get your card? And she used to get a ton of new business that way. But found that when her dreads came in, people stopped asking for her business card. Because now when they looked at her, they didn't see, even though her photography is exactly the same, she was doing exactly the same level of work, people were, oh, there's an artsy fartsy in the room taking pictures. Instead of, ooh, she looks like a really accomplished photographer. As soon as she got rid of her dreadlocks, especially as a white woman, because again, this was a socially charged time that didn't exist 20 years ago, but now it does. So in that climate, it really hurt her. And as soon as she got rid of the hair and went back to her normal Italian hair, all of a sudden the business cards started coming in again, and it grew. So as much as I want to say, don't allow people to dictate your style, you do have to admit to yourself that sometimes the style choices you make will impede your opportunity at being successful. And not that it will stop you, but boy, will it slow you down, and you're going to have to work twice as hard to prove that you are accomplished, which is stupid, really, at the end of the day. When I had my dreadlocks, I used to call them asshole detectors, because I could instantly see who was thinking less of me or underestimating me because of something as trivial as hair. And I took great pleasure in blowing them out of the water every single time and making them look stupid and realizing how superficial they were. And I did that very successfully, but boy, I had to work, I had to fight, I had to struggle for that. Where as soon as now I have my old lady hair and I have my pre-menopause haircut, now that I have that, all of a sudden the gravitas is instant. As soon as people pay attention, they look at me, they're not intimidated. They automatically believe I know what I'm talking about, even if I don't, and I don't have that struggle anymore. Now, when we're talking about African American people and their hair, that's something different, because African American people have been forced socially to make their hair look more white, right? And therefore, wearing things like cornrows at work or a natural fro at work was considered faux pas. And that is cultural erasure. That's awful. That's awful. So the nuances of hair belonging to, natural African Americans, that's something you want to fight for. In a situation like that, I would say, let's normalize your natural hair and undo the social conditioning that is truly racist. That's different. That's different. But you, as a young person that's being, people are trying to take you seriously, but you're coming off looking a lot younger than maybe emotionally mature that you are, or your brain is. You just look like a young, innocent person, and we need to give you more gravitas. Then in that case, just put your bloody hair in a bun. Right? We're not asking you to break integrity by maybe getting a hair trim to be a little bit shorter and more angular to give you a bit of a tougher appearance than looking like you just graduated high school, right? So, maybe we're going to take the sweater vest off you. I remember they did this to poor Aaron O'Toole, what the party did to that guy. So Aaron O'Toole, right? He kind of looks like your dad. He had that vibe, okay? So they tried to cool him up. So I remember they started making him wear sneakers to everything and wearing t-shirts under his blazer. That was the look they were trying to give him. And it's like, you can only cool someone so much. You know what I mean? So I'm asking you, to look at these nuances, to fight where it's really integral, to fight for the integrity of who you are, but also be willing to shift a little. So that you can be taken more seriously or look more polished without actually compromising your integrity. And where it counts is where you put the fight. Because creating hardship for yourself over something as silly as a fashion choice, if it's not a cultural thing, if it's not, something very deeply meaningful to you, because it's meaningful and not because you have an ego glitch or you have something that you're overcompensating for with your bizarre fashion choices, right? So I'm asking you in this class to really, really be self-aware. Where are you physically that you could improve? Is it your styling, the way you dress? Is it how you're perceived or photographed? Is it your hair? Should you wear the Rolex or not wear the Rolex? And by the way, I'm not an anti-luxury person. I am the luxury person. And sometimes it benefits you to have I know someone that has a $35,000 purse and they only wear it in certain environments where there are other real big money players. And what they do this is like a calling card, because unless you are at that level of wealth, you don't even know this designer exists. But people at that level know. So then when they see her, they know, well, that's not a Chanel. Like a Chanel is for poor people of the rich people, right? Right? Louis Vuitton, real rich people don't wear that. It's people that are wanting to look rich that wear that, okay? So she wears the designers only rich people know about. And so that's so they can recognize each other, okay? So that serves a purpose, but could also turn off a voter. So it's nuanced, right? And that's the thing with politics. And you've noticed this in many of the conversations we've already had. You're a walking dichotomy. I don't care what people think. I have to be integral to who I am, but the public perception has to match that of my audience, right? Everything I say seems to be contradictory, and that's what your life in politics is like. You don't wear the Rolex unless it benefits you to wear the Rolex. You drive the Mercedes until it's better for you to drive your kids' jalopy. So it's a dichotomy life. Everything is a dichotomy in politics. Everything is good and bad. Everything is right and wrong at the same time. It's all depending on the situation. And when it comes to your personal style, that's a very important part of the conversation and will impact how you are perceived. And that's a very important thing because it's all about perception in politics. And we start to really share that on public platforms. So until you get a publicist, you're kind of limited to social media, right? So use social media to your advantage, get that algorithm loving you, be very consistent, find your voice, find your passions, and use your social media to share all that without sounding like you're a lecturer or, pontificating to everybody. Find that nice balance where you're fun and you're entertaining and engaging with people while still integral and making a good impression. And then work on getting the professional help you need, like a stylist that's good at political styling, like photography, political photography, especially. You want to do things like get a publicist who's going to get the right articles written about you in the right publications. And if you need some help with that, obviously Black Ram Media Group does all of that stuff, so you can check us out, blackrammedia.com. But in the meantime, YouTube is full of free information on this stuff. So start going and check out Black Ram's YouTube channel because we've put some classes on there too that might help you. So go for it. Go get them and make yourself pretty. I'm kidding. But go work on your social media today. Today, I want you to really do a deep dive on social media platforms, best practices, and how to build your public portfolio. Go on LinkedIn, update your profile a little bit, and see if you can't start your journey. And remember, it's never ending. You're never finished. You'll be updating that profile, if you're smart, every quarter, okay? So keep at it. Have a great day, everybody.